Hello. So welcome to another episode of Ambition After Hours. Just like we usually do, we're going to start off with our highs and lows for the week, and then we're going to jump into a really cool issue that I've wanted to talk about for a long time, and Brittany too, the kind of conflict that comes with being a female leader, to be liked or to be a leader. So why don't we kick off with high-low like we usually do? Brittany, you want to start?
Yes, I would love to start. I feel like I have a lot of highs, but if you guys haven't noticed, let me just move my hair so you can check out my cool after hours merch.
This was going to be my high too. I'm so excited.
Like we are wearing the same thing, but it's been a long time in the making. We were like, what cute designs can we do? And I feel like just having the high-low on our merch is amazing because it's really how we start every episode.
It is, for sure it is. And Brittany's team did such an amazing job with the logo and the mic and everything. It's literally my favorite piece of clothing now.
Yeah. And we did a few. So now we have like a whole wardrobe for golf season, which is nice.
Which is just around the corner. Finally, we have double-digit temperatures today on the plus side of zero, finally.
Yes, which is so exciting. So I think that is my high. Did you want to try and make up another one, or are we just riding with we have awesome merch and it is what it is?
Let's just ride with we have awesome merch. Awesome merch.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so then I guess I'm rolling into a low. Do you want to do your low first?
Sure.
Okay.
So I prepared for this because I find the low part really hard to do. Not because I don't have them, but because I don't love to talk about them.
And she's a clam.
I am a clam. So this week, my low has been realizing that a lot of my irritation in the past couple of months has been completely of my own making, which really pissed me off. And I'll tell you how I realized this. I was thinking about a conversation that I had with a team member, I want to say about a month ago, and she was very stressed out and she was very overwhelmed with so much work that she had on her plate. And she said to me, well, I had to get this all done today and there's no possible way to do that. And I said to her, who said you had to have it all done today? Did this person? And she's like, no. So I said, so you said it had to be done today. Make sure that you're asking about deadlines. And then I thought, as I was thinking about some of the things that have irritated me over the past couple of months and made all of this change I'm currently going through really hard. And I was like, I need to take my own advice. Don't you hate when that happens? I've made up all of these fake boundaries and fake targets that I don't even know are going to improve my performance and then tried to achieve them. And some of them are very unachievable. I've made up all these perceptions that other people have about how I'm working and how well I'm doing. And I don't actually know if any of that is true. So I've been really overwhelmed, stressed, irritated because I've created this false perception of me that I think other people have about the way that I'm working currently. And it's total bullshit. I don't know any of it. It's all in my head.
I think as type A's, we can get caught up in that, in thinking like, oh, I have to do it right now. I have to do it expedited because honestly, that's how I want things done.
Me too.
But
yesterday.
I think like everyone has a different expectation on like delivering something, right? I do the same thing. So like in my office, I'm like max 24-hour turnaround. And sometimes that's just like unobtainable. So I totally get where you're coming from. You're like, now you have to evaluate everything. And you're like, oh, do I actually have more time on my hands to accomplish these things than I really do?
Yeah. And more so than that, I've tried to get into the habit of saying, when do you need this by? And the targets are always, or when would you like to have this by? And the targets are always 500 times longer than the timeline I would have put up myself. Or if I ask people what their expectations are of me and just ask so I know, they're never as crazy as my expectations of myself. So there you go. As per usual, I'm the problem. It's me.
It's me. I'm the problem. You know what? That's okay though. I feel like I'm going to go a little woo-woo and bear with me. Like, okay, here we go. So I've been feeling disconnected with myself and my goals, and I feel like I'm treading water and not really getting anywhere. So I bought this journal and I featured it on my Instagram because it like actually blew my mind. It's called Cut It Off. And in this journal, there is just a bunch of prompts. And these are like weird prompts that you wouldn't typically ask yourself. I can get caught up in like not knowing what to journal. So I was like, oh, maybe a prompt journal would be a great thing for me. These prompts are like, if you could talk to someone who's passed away and ask them one question, what would the question be?
Ugh.
If you could, or tell me about the person you love the most. And then you like write all these journalings, and then you flip the page and it's like, why isn't it you?
Oh, this climb is so uncomfortable just thinking about doing those journal prompts.
So the first page I did was, tell me how you're really feeling, ... really. And so I just like wrote my heart out. I vented in this book. And after I was like sobbing because I feel like sometimes I can be a clam. I'm like, I don't cry unless it's in the shower type. Like, so this was, I've been feeling disconnected. That is my low. But I feel like now I'm on the uptick because I found this journal that I'm going to like really dive into and just leave it on the paper. I've decided.
That's a great idea. I think it's interesting to know like how you can make yourself cry if you need to let out emotion. So for me, my emotional home is anger and intensity. That's where I go to cover up anything else. So sometimes if I need to cry, it will happen on my Peloton bike, on a metal ride, or while I'm hitting my punching bag. And I'll be like, what is happening now?
But I think with anything, well, that's probably just your body being like, it's time to release this.
Maybe.
Because, you know, they say like with any strong emotion, like I've laughed so hard I've cried.
Fair.
You know, or I've got so angry I've cried. So I feel like with any strong emotion, like that is like, if I need to cry, it's going to happen. It's just going to come out. So anyways, that was my low. I feel like I'm on the up though. It sucks as an entrepreneur because sometimes you're like, I would really love to talk to someone about this, but you're like shamed or embarrassed or something. So leaving it all on the paper is what I'm going to do now.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I think that's super healthy. You can also,
you know what, I'm trying.
you can also always call your co-star.
Oh yeah, my little mirror.
And you can cry, and then I'll yell because you know that's what...
We've had a couple good texts this week about like, oh my god, da 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 da, and I'm like, you know what, I get it.
Which is so handy, and it's surprisingly with how much we've been hanging out and how long we've known each other. This is something that's fairly new, and it's great. I'm really surprised that we didn't reach out more before,
yeah.
And what it makes me think of is you all reaching out to us anonymously. Put it in the message on our website and say, hey, this shitty thing happened. You guys get it. And we get it. And we'll put a voice to it and it will be anonymous. So don't forget about the website. Don't forget about tagging us, or as the cool kids say, sliding into our DMs.
Sliding into the DMs. Yes. Also, huge update. Along with our awesome merch, we have an awesome website.
Yes. We do. We have an awesome website. Thanks to Brittany. She's so talented. Honestly, I'm just here for moral support of Brittany, I think.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I need obviously that moral support more than I thought. So thanks for coming along for the ride. But let's dive into this hot topic. I have to admit, I am a little bit nervous to talk about this topic because actually, I don't know why. Because maybe I'm a woman entrepreneur and I don't want to seem vulnerable. I don't want to put that out there, but it's something that is backed by science, is backed by facts. So let's talk about women in the corporate world, being a leader and how hard it is.
It is for sure hard. I think I was telling Brittany also that I'm nervous about this episode. And for me, I did a lot of thinking about why that is. And it came up that I was a little bit afraid that people would think of me as a feminist. And shouldn't I be proud that people would think of me as a feminist?
You would think we are women. Yeah.
You would think. And it's my own unconscious bias, I think, which is what we're going to talk about today, being liked or being a leader. And I think my nervousness and fear over this episode has to do with that likability trap. So why don't you start us off with a stat that you came to me with?
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive into that. So women earn 85% of what men earn.
Not cool.
Which is pretty wild. If we look at Fortune 500 CEOs, only 11.6 of those are women.
The interesting thing about that really ties into this TED Talk that I saw originally on Instagram, and then I watched the whole thing, and it really spoke to me. It was done by Hauser, and what it talks about is this Harvard study where they gave a business case on leadership to a class. And 50% of them, the name of the CEO was Howard Rosen, and 50% of them was Heidi Rosen. And then they looked at what students had said about their leadership. And all students found both Henry and Heidi to be competent. However, they found Heidi to not be very likable. They found her to be cold, out for herself. They said things like they wouldn't want to work with her or for her. However, Howard they thought he was a great guy and would love to have him as a colleague. Isn't that interesting? Everything else in the case was the same.
The same. Everything was the same. But same resumes delivered. They thought Heidi was uptight, rude, maybe a little forward.
Yeah.
But Howard, man, that guy, he's the guy.
And the interesting thing about this case in particular is they talk about why, like what is the bias behind that makes us more apt to like male leaders than female leaders. And part of it is gender norms still after all this time. And this wasn't a class full of men. Like this was a class full of students, conceivably pretty much 50-50 female and male. And yet no matter who was reading the case, they came up with the same conclusion. And it's because as women, our gender norms are to be nurturing, to be supportive, to be softer spoken, to be in a supporting role, all of those kinds of things. Whereas men are their gender norms are to be confident, to be strong, to be the hero, to do all of those things and just be the people that drive things forward. So when a woman is confident, driven, a leader, all of those things, outspoken, people perceive her as unlikable.
Which is crazy to me because I've grown up never to be the shy one, right? Like every time I'm in a group scenario, even in university, I was like, I'm the leader. I'll do it. Like I often get put into those leadership roles. And I think maybe that's just like, I am a little bit more of a dominant female personality, perhaps. But I also, and we'll get into this later about, asking for what you deserve. I learned that very early. So could that be a factor? We'll see.
I think for me, this has cropped up in every step forward I've taken in my career. Because much like you, even in university, all through my life, I've been wanting to drive the group forward, wanting to get things done, wanting to overachieve, very outspoken, pushing for what I want.
Yeah.
But after the situation where I've displayed myself as a strong leader is over, or after I've had the difficult conversation with a team member, or after I've gone to my supervisor, or whatever the case may be, and said, hey, this isn't not appropriate. Here's what we need to do. Or here's this great idea I have. Here's how we implement it. I've gone home that night and thought, frick, I bet you they hate me. Like, I'm sure everyone's thinking I'm a bitch. And it comes through my mind all the time, even now. And that doesn't mean I'm going to stop being a strong leader. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop having opinions or putting my hand up or driving the business forward. But what it does mean is I often feel very unlikable. And as a leader, as you grow your company, because I think there's lots of startups that listen to us, but also lots of mature businesses, it's something that I still struggle on a regular and consistent basis to be okay with. My mom, who's an amazing entrepreneur, has a huge business. She would say to me early in my career, you have to stop giving a shit if people like you. You have to stop caring if people like you. And I agree with her. I also think it's so difficult.
Okay, so I love that you brought that up because I've had very few women in my life where I've met them and I've been like, oh, I'm like a little bit intimidated by you. Your mom is one of them. I love her. But now that I know her, I love her. But when I first met her, I was like, oh, shoot. Like, she is a boss.
She is a boss.
Like, she is a boss. And I've met other ladies. And it's so funny. When I meet these other ladies now, I like almost step outside myself. And I'm like, why do I feel this way about this person? Are they emulating something I wish I could emulate? And then we become friends.
I agree with that. Whenever I'm super jealous of another female in any line of business, I have now trained myself to say in my head, much like you, to stop these kind of biases. Like, what is it about her that is pointing out to me something that I'm missing? What is about my interaction with her that makes me feel insecure about my own success? And then why feel insecure? Just fix it. Just be more successful. Just emulate that habit.
For sure.
And instead of being jealous and falling into all these biases about, oh, they're cold, they're just out for themselves, they're too confident, they're too outspoken, instead thinking, this is great. Here's somebody who is paving the way, and how can I also pave the way?
Well, exactly. And the crazy thing about like digging into this TED Talk, and we'll share the link so you guys can watch it. It's a short watch, but impactful. Was when they said, hey, it's not only men. It's women and men that have these views, which is wild to me because as women, we know, like at one point or another, if you've had a job or you've experienced something, Like
sure.
if you're in a team meeting and someone talks over you, or you have a great idea, but someone else takes credit for it. Like these are all like micro signs that this is happening to you. And we've all been victim of it, yet we are doing it to other women. And we have to worry about so many things being women leaders. Doing that to each other is just like hurts my heart.
Yeah, it's horrible. How about, should we share some of those? I have one that I could share. Brittany's heard it before.
Yeah.
It still irritates me. It still stings to this day,
Mhm.
but I'll tell you what happened. So I was part of a volunteer organization. And on this volunteer organization centered around kind of sharing business, there is an executive team. So 3 people who kind of volunteer to kind of run that group. And for the last couple of years, we had full male executive teams. And this is a leadership group, or a group that I actually was a founding member of and helped build to that level. But second year in a row, 3 males on the executive team. And moreover, they had rescinded their offer to a female who had amazing stats and was killing it, and instead offered the position on the executive to a male in the chapter who was really, really underperforming. And you have to vote in
These people.
Yeah. And it has to be unanimous, but you can abstain. So is that really a vote? I don't know. Anyway, I abstained from voting, obviously, because I need my voice to be heard. It's my tragic flaw, but also one of my greatest strengths.
I women hear me roar, right? Yeah.
Right. So after the meeting was over, I went up to the male executive that was now in, and I said to them, the optics of this are so bad. I don't know how you're going to fix it, but it needs to be fixed. Here's what happened. This group is 50% female, and here's what you've told them about this organization by making this choice. And after I left, one of the people in the group that I had helped build reached out to me and said I was no longer welcome back for not having a positive and supportive attitude. Now, you have to think. Let's think about that as if it was an all-female leadership team for 2 years in a row.
Right.
And a male coming forward and saying, hey, the optics of this aren't great. How do we fix this? How do you think those 3 females would have responded to that feedback?
Oh, I think like they would have been like, yeah, the optics of that aren't great. Let's talk about it.
How can we work together on a solution? Or what are your recommendations for us to make sure that our male members feel supported, or something like that? It wouldn't have been, peace out, we don't want you back anymore.
We don't like your opinion, get out.
Because confidence and leadership is perceived as not being liked when it comes from female leaders. So that's my story. And I know that this particular organization has made lots of changes since then, and they've rectified a lot of situations. I don't know if they have in that particular group of people, but I know they have in other groups of people. And so I know that this organization is doing a much better job of rectifying things like that now than they did then. But it's definitely something to learn from. Additionally, the person who runs the entire organization at that time was female. And she is the one who had the meeting with me, which just proves that this bias is not a male-female bias. It's an everybody bias.
It's an everybody bias.
We all have to check our bias.
Which makes total sense. I'll tell you about a time that like kind of rings true to me. So every job I've had, I've kind of given it my all, right? I'm that employee that doesn't just work 9 to 5. I like care, right? And maybe that's because I come from a heavy sales background, and if you're not making sales, you're not making money. But I grew up grinding, right? Like all my sales jobs up until being an entrepreneur, I was a grinder. So for those of you who know me, I come from a financial background, and then I segued into marketing. And so at my first marketing job, I had worked there for about 3 years, and I was one of 2 girls on the team. The other one had been working there for quite a long time. She was an older lady, whatever. But I was like, okay, like whatever. She goes on vacation and some shady stuff happens where like thousands of dollars go missing.
Wow.
Like thousands of dollars. So my boss, male at the time, calls me into his office and he says, hey, you come from a financial background. What did they do when this stuff happened? And I say, well, you have to do X, Y, and Z. Make sure you're recording everything. Go to the police, right? Like when it's upwards of past $30,000, you're like, okay, we need to open something up. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, and I was like, just take my advice. Like these are the steps to do this. Okay. So fast forward, he does nothing.
Nothing?
Lets her go, but does nothing. And I have to tell you that like instantly, all of my respect was lost for this man. because I was like, this is like me speaking up, telling you exactly what to do. And you were just like, yeah, I'll take the L on this one. And maybe it was because he felt that or whatever the case may be, but I personally felt that I was not being listened to and I was being oversighted. So anyways, I obviously didn't work at that job very much longer after that. But the whole like, let me ask you what I should do. And I was like, very helpful. If you need help with any of this, let me know. Because we're a very small team. When something happens like that, it's pretty detrimental. But yeah, he didn't take my advice, so whatever. And then promoted one of the guys that was there less time than me.
So,
and that's how the cookie crumbles. So it is what it is.
I wonder if we're going to talk about this later. Let me just look. No, we're not. So I heard an interesting stat also, and I wish I had the reference for it here, but I don't. And it said that as a rule, males are promoted based on their potential and females are promoted based on their proven success. And additionally, once a man reaches a place of success and power, it is attributable to his skill. But a female that reaches the same position, it's attributed to luck and to the help that she has around her.
Oh, wow. That's makes me angry.
It does, and I see it happen in small ways all the time.
Yeah.
I think we're more likely to put men in positions of powers. We're more likely to see them as leaders just naturally, or see that they have the potential to be leaders and all those kinds of things. So I have a friend who is a professional, and she worked at a place for, I want to say, about 15 years, was a manager there, killing it, so good at her job.
Yeah.
And she went back to school and got all these designations and things because they had said to her that if she did that, then she would have an opportunity to make partnership. She did the work. She did all of the work, and she did it the hard way. You know, she went back as a full-fledged, amazing professional and did all the things she needed to do to get the letters that would allow her to do what she wanted. And when she had done that, the feedback to her was, well, we can't make you partner because you're such a good workhorse.
Oh my God, I would be devastated and so angry. But I also read a stat that the more you look at the corporate ladder, the less the females are, right? Like, I mean, goes to show that stat of only 11.6 of Fortune 500 groups like have a female leader.
And it's because when we are confident, we are perceived as unlikable. And that's the conundrum.
Mm-hmm.
So that is it shouldn't be a choice that you have to make. But the more times that we as female leaders choose confidence and forget about likability, I think the more accepted confidence in women and leadership in women will be over time.
So do you think then, being a leader and being a woman, do you think that you can have both?
100% you can. You just have to reframe what it means to be liked to yourself. There's a really good book called The Likability Trap. I think we talk about it. I think it's on the list of things to talk about somewhere in here. But what it talks about is how to teach yourself what likability means to you.
Okay.
And so it's more about, have I led in line with my values?
Right. Yeah.
Have I been fair? Have I helped this person in every way I can be better at their job? Those kinds of questions, not do they like me? Did I come across as a bitch? Any of those are not appropriate. But also, that's what leads to the trap of me going home every night being like, I did my job. I did what needed to be done. So why do I feel so horrible about it? Right. Why am I sure everybody hates me? Who cares? Your job as a female leader is not necessarily to make sure that everybody likes you. But rest assured, if you're doing a good job as a leader and you're helping people progress in their career, whether they like you or not, you're doing your job, and they're benefiting from it. And as long as they're benefiting from it, the people that you lead, then does it really matter if they like you?
Yeah, I think leading with integrity is like one of those things that I have to constantly remind myself. Like, it's okay if I think that person is mad at me because I've led with integrity. I'm following my values. I'm doing what I think is best for my business. And sometimes as women entrepreneurs, we have to make those like gut-wrenching decisions, unfortunately. But would a male feel the same way?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I think if you're a woman entrepreneur and you grew up as a kid being called bossy, like, this podcast is for you.
Yeah, it sure is.
Because you probably have the same internal thoughts that we both have when it comes to, being a leader and pushing forward.
Let's all take the word bossy as a compliment. It means you're
Seriously.
boss-like. You're bossing people around. Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah. And you know what? I'm like, yes, I'm bossy. But I'm clear and I'm direct. And don't you want that in someone who is leading you?
Firm but fair, and clarity is kindness. And I think that is also not, that's Brene Brown. That is not me. Just so that we're not in trouble with anybody. But those two things, firm but fair, clarity, clarity is kindness. I think if you keep, for me, if I keep those in the back of my mind, then at the end of the day, when I go home, even if I've had to have some really difficult conversations, which recently I've had to have some really difficult conversations, I'm okay with it because I know that it was work oriented. It was not personal. It was directed at performance and ways we can improve and ways we can get better and supporting that person so that they can be the best in their role.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about takeaways from that.
Okay.
I think redefining what likable means, right? Like you can still be direct, but would you say clarity is kindness?
Yeah, clarity
is kindness. So I feel like if you are more of the direct communicator, just bringing clarity to that. I feel like people appreciate clarity though.
For sure. For sure. If you're not,
especially if you're in a leader position, because what people look for is like, can they get me through this?
And I think if you're seeking to be as clear as possible, then it takes all of those words that are too personal to be in a constructive criticism meeting out automatically. For example, you're not saying things like, you're really not doing well, your performance is bad. What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. What we need to say is, here's the result we're currently getting. Here's the result we need to get. What roadblocks are in front of you that are preventing you from giving us B instead of A? So
I actually wrote down, like, in these situations when you are a strong female and you might be worried about being perceived a certain way, lead with the facts. Lead with the analytics. Lead with, hey, you did A, B, C. That's not okay. This is why we're discussing it. And I think maybe that just comes down to that clarity is kindness thing.
For sure. For sure. It totally does. And I, as a rule, try to keep the word you out of it as much as possible because I think people find it confrontational. And also because when I was...
She's thinking about it now in her head.
When I was a very new manager, one of the first notes that I got when I was giving queries. So when you're an accountant, a prepared is a file, they submit it to you, and your sole job is to tell them everything that they did wrong in that file and give it back to them to fix. Because one, that's how they learn. And two, we want to make sure the files are 100% correct. And the feedback, or one tip that I was given when I started doing that, was never use the word you. So it wouldn't be, you recorded amortization wrong. It would be, amortization is incorrect. Please check the calculation.
I mean, I feel that that is a good delivery. For sure.
So
I think people know, like, if they're working on a file, they did it wrong. There's no reason to shed light on that. However, is this just the woman in me talking? When a man writes a query? Yeah, a query. Are they like, you did, like, I would love to see the notes of like what women write and what men write.
Do you know what's funny is in my career as a professional, I don't think I've ever received queries from, oh no, that's wrong. I have. It's just been so long that I can't remember.
I'm sure.
I think that's a good leadership tip in general, but if you're worried about things like being perceived as unlikable, the best way to help yourself be okay with what you said is to keep it really fact-based and not at all personal. The Likability Trap is also a takeaway. I think it's a great book, and it really helps in terms of reframing what it is to be a female leader and learning how to be strong in your confidence and confident in your confidence.
Confident in your confidence. Before we move on to our next point, I also just wanted to mention, like, we started the episode saying like, hey, we text each other about all the shit. But I think it's important to say, get a buddy.
A mirror. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you call it a mirror. I call it, a buddy. But like, get someone that you can consult with and be like, hey, am I the a-hole in this situation?
For real, there was a situation just this past week where I had done something really quickly in a meeting to show our peers something that they wanted to see. And I thought nothing of it because I'm 1,000 miles a minute right now. It's tax season, whatever the shortest distance between 2 points is. And I got a text from Brittany being like, wow. And I was, what is she talking about? And then we had a conversation and I said, like, be honest with me, like, tell me. And she's like, that was, you didn't mean it to be offensive.
Okay. The only reason, like, I was outsider watching this situation. So I was like, she's type A. I get it because I function that way. Just quick, let's do it. Show me the quickest way. Let's get it over with and move on. However, we have to just sit back and realize that, like, not everybody's brain works like that. And some people might just like take offense to that kind of stuff. So
to be clear, I redid a report in front of the person who originally did a report the way that the group of people wanted to see it. in the meeting with the group of people and the person who prepared the report.
Yeah, I mean, like, you were just, again, moving 1,000 miles a minute, and that's fine, but whatever. Now we know. Now we know. Correct it for next time, right? Like,
yes.
Whatever.
And I think it's so great to have a mirror who's going to say, whoa. And then I can think back and think to myself, okay, in future, that's an offline conversation where I can actually help the person and show them how to pull this information rather than just doing it and I don't know, upstaging is the word, but upstaging the person who prepared it.
And it might have felt like that, but I know that wasn't your intention at all. But I think having someone in your corner that's going to be brutally honest with you, because I have no filter. Sometimes if I think you're being dumb, I will tell you you're being dumb. And I think people just need that. As I expect that from you, if I'm going to be that person for you, I need that delivery too. Being like, you're being dumb.
You know, when I had my first staff member, and this is such a cringy moment for me looking back, I said to somebody, you are way too smart to ask a question that's stupid. And I still think about that, but I was telling my best friend about it, and she's like, you cannot say things like that. And I was like, I called them smart. And she's like, that's not what they heard. All they heard was that you told them they asked a stupid question. So I went back and I fixed the situation. This was very, very long ago in my career. And since then, I have never, ever used that sentence ever again. I think I heard it like when I was a kid. And I think when you're raising kids, that's different than having staff. So it's just like popped out of my mouth. And, you know, it wasn't a harsh conversation. It was just like in passing. But if you have those people where you can say, here's what I said, and they can be like, dude, you are so offside. Then you can fix it. And then you know, but sometimes because we've heard something a million times and it doesn't feel that way to us, I think the mirror thing is really important. So if you're in a situation
100%.
where you've had a difficult conversation and you're feeling like unlikable, but in the wrong kind of way, talk to your mirror. Here's exactly what happened.
Though I feel like your mirror has to be, like, if you're an entrepreneur, your mirror has to be an entrepreneur.
For sure.
Because there's different pains that come with being an employee or an entrepreneur. And obviously our audience is very much the entrepreneur, not the employee, and that's okay. But I think it's just you lead a different way.
For sure.
So
I learned that early on in my marriage.
Also, you know, that's it's been going around the internet now, and it's like, don't be so hard on your parents because it's the first time that they're parenting too, or whatever, like in their life. I feel like that can ring true for some of us entrepreneurs. Like, don't be so hard on us. It's the first time we're entrepreneurs too, or like leading a team too, or, you know, like doing all of these things too. Is sometimes what I'm saying is our delivery can be off, and we don't mean it like that, but
yeah. And I think as we grow, we learn not to say any question is stupid ever.
Yeah.
And lessons like that looking back, that's why I said it was so cringy. I can't even believe that would come out of my mouth, but I learned from it, right? So being an entrepreneur, remember, as you're trying to feel likable, you're trying to lead, you're trying to know if you did it with integrity, you're trying to beat biases and be confident and do all of these things as a female leader, show yourself some grace. 80% of being an entrepreneur is screwing up a whole bunch and then learning that it was a screw up and then doing things differently.
And the thing is, like, it can be embarrassing sometimes. Obvi.
Did you see her reaction when I said that sentence? That's what it was like. And until somebody told me that, honestly, I never saw it. Anyway.
So that's probably a great takeaway, is just get a mirror. But I want to talk a little bit about this pay gap because it is still so vast. And we talked about it last episode where, you know, as women, sometimes we don't ask what we're worth, or we decrease our prices just to help someone, because that is like you said, we are grown to know that sometimes a woman's role is to take care of someone and help them and be helpful. Let's talk about the pay gap.
Yeah. So I think there's two things we can talk about with respect to the pay gap. One is from a business owner perspective, where we need to make sure that we're valuing our services, make sure we're not undervaluing them, price shop yourself, do things like that.
100%.
And just remember that, you know, your time does have value, and make sure that you're constantly fact checking yourself before you're doing things for free. I think the other side of it, because I do think some of our listeners are in corporate positions or they're climbing the corporate ladder. The other thing to remember is if you're already a leader, check your bias. Are you assigning this person that kind of pay because you see potential in them? Is there any bias sneaking in? Have they asked? Are you underpaying them because they haven't asked? Right. So let's just make sure that as leaders, we're not perpetuating this, because it's very easy to do. I think, as we learned from talking about our biases in the first section. The other thing is, if you are a female in the corporate world, if you don't ask, you don't get. And there's a really great book called Women Don't Ask. That's awesome. But it talks about how we are more likely to think, well, probably not exactly like this, but we're more likely to think that, you know, we're just doing our job, or that just to keep our job, we need to go above and beyond. And we don't always assign value to that. And if you don't ask, you don't get. And fear of asking, I think, is a big contributor to that. We have to have confidence in our value and think, if they're not willing to pay me for all of the additional work that I'm doing, they either need to give me a roadmap to get there and explain to me why, or maybe I should go work for somebody who does.
I have a story about this.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to lead into it. So, like I was saying at the very beginning of this episode, I learned that very early in my corporate career, that if you don't ask, you don't get. So there came a time where I was quitting a job and they were like, don't leave. I'll give you a raise. They offered me a raise, but I already had an offer from another company that, you know, whatever, the offer was good. So they say, don't leave, we'll give you a raise. I entertain it. I'm like, okay, show me what you're offering. They show me, and it's still lower than the job I'm going to. So then I tell them, like, sorry, it's still lower than where I'm going. And, you know, it is what it is. And they're like, no, wait, we'll match it. And I'm like, okay. So then I go back to the other company and I'm like, hey, like they don't want to see me leave. They've matched your offer. And they're like, no, we're going to up our offer to get you here.
Nice.
And then so I go back and I'm like, oh, sorry, they've upped the offer. And they're like, no, we will pay you more. And then so I go back and they're like, yeah, okay, like that's our top end, whatever. And I understand. So I go back, but then thinking about this later, one, if I didn't ask, I wouldn't have got. Two, why was the pay gap for me so large that you could just up it by thousands and thousands of dollars?
In the first place.
Why was I doing all of this? If I was so valuable that you were going to give me a raise.
Yeah.
Why did I, you know what I mean? Like, I know that you can't pay everyone at the top of their scale off the bat, but you came back almost like 3 times.
From the position of a leader, I saw a little video on Instagram the other day and I was thinking to myself, that is so true. And it was, I think, a recruiter, and they were saying, if your top people would leave for a 20% pay increase, give them that 20% pay increase now, because finding someone new is going to cost you clients, time, 6 to 8 months, and you're going to end up paying that anyway.
Fair. I think, though, people need to grow into their roles. Like, if they came to me with no experience and I'm allowing them to get experience, allowing them to grow within, you know, the marketing industry, giving them all of these knowledge opportunities, I don't think I would rush to pay them at the top of their scale.
No. But if they're already your top person.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
If they're already your top person, they're in a leadership position, or they're taking things off your plate. They're acting proactively. They have great relationships with all of your clients. Those kinds of things.
Acting is like the quickest way to get a raise with me. If you have proactively taken something off my plate, or you have just been like, yeah, no, like I've done it. No worry. I'm like, that's worth the weight in gold.
If I see a team member following up with me for something, hey, I finished this. I noticed you hadn't yet reviewed it, and the dividend and the deadline is coming up. I'm just like, oh,
yeah. You know what? My thing is, like, I love when someone's a go-getter.
Yeah.
Like, I often don't even hire someone unless they've followed up with me.
That's a good point. That's a good hiring tip. We're getting a little off track, but
yeah, sorry.
I think that's valuable information.
But I want to just let's circle back to the pay gap, though, because the stat is women still earn 82 cents for every dollar earned by men. And that's a US stat, by the way. It varies per country, obviously, but that's pretty impactful. So I think when us entrepreneurs are stepping out into the world and we're giving pricing, I think it's important to like price shop, like you said.
Yeah. Pretend like you're a client of your competitors and phone around. Yeah. Oftentimes you find that you're undercharging, or if you find that you're overcharging, then you can adjust your systems. But I do think that that's important for sure.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's still so large? 82 cents on the dollar is still huge. Why do you think that that's still a thing after all of these years and all of this quote unquote progress?
I think because one, you said it's like a gender bias, but two, it's a cultural thing. I think there's a lot of cultures out there that still operate on like archaic thought, right? Another one is we can be more empathetic. So in the like greater good of helping people, we can undersell ourselves. And then you come into this like angry loop of overperforming or over having to prove yourself. And I think like we've all been there.
Yeah, I think we've all overperformed and been under delivered too.
Yeah. But also I read a stat that said that because women are constantly in this cycle with both genders, right? Like we're constantly feel like we're being judged or whatever. It causes women burnout really, really quickly.
Yeah, because we are proving our way into leadership positions by overachieving, by taking on too much, by doing all of these things. Then by the time we get offered the leadership position, we're still doing everything and we're tired. And then we come across this feeling like we're not liked by anybody anymore. And it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. Yeah. So women in burnout, like that's another thing that we don't even think like is an effect of this, but it totally is.
I was watching a comedian on Instagram the other day. This just made me think of it. And maybe this is offside. So if it is, please troll us in the comments like people do on the internet. Yeah. Allie, what is her last name? She's a comedian. Allie.
Anyways.
We'll find it. We'll find it and we'll link it.
Yeah.
She is doing her comedy routine and she said something about how women can have it all. And then she said, I have it all and it's not enough. And then she said, do you know how much more successful I would be if I had a wife? And I just like started crying laughing. But I mean, that's obviously not something I'm experiencing. Like my husband's awesome. We don't have any kids. So like on that side of things, I don't have a lot of commitment. So that doesn't ever contribute to burnout for me. But I
don't
just
undersell
thought
yourself.
But I just thought it was like a cute way of highlighting some of the additional pressures that women leaders have both in and out of their careers.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I want to talk about like when you go into a corporate situation, and we talked about how many men versus women there are and just having a seat at that table.
Yeah, I think it's important for female leaders to create space for other females at the table. I also think it's okay if you feel like you're not supposed to be there anyway.
100%. Often when I've been put into rooms with people I think like might outrank me or are doing better in life than me or whatever, I sit with those people and then very quickly realize that they're just people.
For sure. And if you don't speak up in opportunities like that, or if you don't make yourself a seat at the table, no one's going to make it for you. And you are never going to build the skill and the muscle to be confident in those situations unless you put yourself in those situations and feel uncomfortable first.
Yeah. And I think if you've listened to this podcast and you've related with anything that we've said, one thing is to just find mentors or groups that also relate, right? Because I think for us, we've created this podcast because it is something that is relatable. We want a space for women entrepreneurs to be able to go and be like, I'm just screaming about everything that is driving me crazy, whether that be this topic or many of the other topics that we've done. That's like what we wanted. There's a couple of women groups that we've even visited and it's been super relatable. We've met great people. But I think also when you are pulling up a seat to the table, it's good to drive your results with data. Like, they're going to look at you and, we talked about double performing or overperforming. I think having the data to be like, I've got my degree in this and I've done A, B, C, and D for this business and I should be in a leadership position. This is all I've done. I think that's great too, because they can't discredit that.
I think that's exactly true. And what I love about what you have put here for notes, and I'm just going to highlight this.
Oh, sure.
Because in a prior episode, Brittany complimented me and it made me super uncomfortable. So owning your own accomplishments. Nobody is going to throw your parade for the great things you do. You have to do it. And as a female, you have to make sure that your male counterparts, but also that all the leaders at your organization know that you did it, appreciate that you did it, and understand that you did it, either like who helped you or that you didn't help or that it's attributable to your skills. They need to know not only that you did it, but how you did it so they can make sure that they attribute all of the success of that thing to you.
Yeah, because sometimes our accomplishments can get overshadowed a little bit. But I also think like if you feel that there is no seat at the table for you, bring your own damn chair. Like, you know what? Like no one's going to advocate for you unless you advocate for yourself. So as crappy as it is to be like, boss up, be a boss, be bossy. Like, I think that is where we are at right now, unfortunately. Until that 82% or 82 cents on the dollar gets close to a dollar, this is where we have to be.
I agree. I think that one thing that I'd like to put in here as a caveat is for organizations that have female CEOs, oftentimes they outperform their male counterparts. So we don't have to be male or act male to be a strong female leader. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be confident, that we shouldn't be assertive, that we shouldn't be outspoken.
Right.
All of those are just qualities. I don't believe at all that those are male qualities. What I'm saying is the empathy and the emotional intelligence that we have, we don't have to turn that off. That will help us drive towards greater heights. It won't hinder us. So it's about finding a balance, making sure that you are stepping into your confidence, taking your own frickin' chair to the meeting, speaking out with your ideas, but also remembering to maintain your emotional intelligence and your empathetic nature, particularly when it comes to people who report to you.
Yes. I love that you mentioned confidence because, like I said at the beginning, offline, we weren't recording at that time, but I've stopped using just in my emails. So instead of saying, I'm just following up, I'm following up. I'm not just following up. Just is going to leave my vocabulary because I feel like that's a filler word. It's for me to come in softer.
Yes, I agree. And I noticed when you said that earlier how many times I say, just checking in, just looking for a quick update.
I do that all the time.
So I'm going to try that. Actually, maybe on the next episode, I'm going to write it down. We can report back on like how that's working for us.
Sure.
No more just. I also love, I say all the time, I think, or maybe, or I believe that this is, and that is saying this might not be right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just my perception.
Yeah.
I think
so
that's what people
instead
read when they hear that.
Yeah. Instead of being like, I think, I'd be like, I'm confident that XYZ. Like, I need these power statements now in my life. And if you've followed our Instagram, I just shared a post from another page that has a bunch of power statements like this because I think we don't pay attention. Oh, see,
I just did it. That we don't pay attention.
I just did it. Yeah. See? So I know it's a work in progress, but I'm trying.
This other tip, practice strategic silence, is so powerful.
We just talked about that.
And so hard.
Yeah.
So hard. The few times that I've been able to master being 100% silent and not saying anything when it was really required to not say anything and wait for the other person to kind of dig themselves a hole or admit to whatever or bring down their price, etc. It has worked amazingly well. But in the entirety of my career, I have only managed to do it, I want to say probably like 2 or 3 times. It is so hard and so powerful.
Yeah. Often, because I'm a yapper, if you guys didn't notice, often when I think about that and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be quiet and see what they have to say, I feel like I'm a pot boiling over. I'm like, oh my gosh, just say something already. And I have to like wait for the delivery. And it seems like very awkward, but you're right. Sometimes it turns out for the better.
I would say oftentimes it does. So I will also practice that in the future. It gives whoever you're talking to, it gives them the time to appreciate the gravity of the situation and try to figure out what you're thinking and what you want to hear and reply that back to you in my experience. Or it makes them uncomfortable enough that you get an honest answer, which is also awesome when it comes to negotiation.
Yeah, and we love honest answers.
Do we often get them? But we love them.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, that is about all that we have for you today on being a female leader. So if you've felt the pain points that we've talked about today, I encourage you to just lead with confidence, find your group, and maybe just take some of those filler words out of your vocabulary. And you know what? Build your own damn chair and bring it to the table because you are worth it.
I am going to do my 3 bullet points and out.
Oh, yes, summary.
So here are the call to actions that I have for all of you as female leaders. Encourage women that you know who are leaders to define it in their own terms. If you hear them talking about not being liked, help them understand that it's not about that. Call out to your organization how they reward people, what the language is that they use when they're rewarding male versus female employees. If you hear a bias in there, call it out. Help them understand what the bias is. If you see it in yourself, call it out. Help yourself understand what the bias is. And acknowledge that it's not a women's issue, it's an everybody's issue. And find an up-and-comer, mentor them, and help them get a seat at your table.
That's right. That's all we have for you today. As always, please submit anonymously to our LinkedIn or website, and we will share your wins or losses or whatever you want to vent about there as well. Thank you for tuning in to Ambition After Hours.
Bye.
See ya.